This could be the most comfortable ultralight backpack going into 2026. And I'm honestly curious, could it knock the Kakwa 55 off of its pedestal? I'm taking it out on a trip with a bunch of other gear that could seriously shake up the lightweight backpacking world. We've got a budget ultralight tent, a sleeping pad that costs a fraction of the big brands, a stove system that might be the best beginner ultralight setup I've seen, the lightest fleece I've ever owned, and I even brought something that lets me grill a steak in the backcountry. So the question is this gear actually any good? Or am I gonna have a miserable night in the mountains? The pack I'm most interested in testing on this trip is the new Outdoor Vitals Carbon Evo 50. What makes this pack interesting is it's trying to solve a problem that most ultralight packs still struggle with: comfort. This thing weighs about 30 ounces, so still just under 2 pounds. But it has a full carbon frame system designed to carry real weight comfortably. Outdoor Vitals calls it their Carbon Flex suspension system. Basically curved carbon fiber stays, real load lifters, and a redesigned hip belt that's supposed to distribute weight better than typical ultralight packs. And if this works the way they claim, this could be a huge deal, because a lot of ultralight packs are light, but not always comfortable once you start pushing 25 to 30 pounds. So today I want to answer 3 main questions. Is it comfortable out on trail? Does it carry weight like a frame pack should? And is this something that I would actually choose over my current setup? I've got about 26 pounds in here today, which is a little more than I normally carry, but I really wanted to be able to test this thing out on trail, and so I carried a few extra things that I'm testing out today. So let's get on the trail and see how it does. Along with the pack, I'm also testing out a few more budget-friendly items that could really help people get more into the lightweight backpacking world without spending a fortune. First is the Lanshan Pro 2. This tent's been around for a while, but it's still one of the lightest budget trekking pole tents out there. And I wanted to see how it actually feels on a real trip compared to more expensive shelters. Next, I've got one of the Naturehike air pads. This one's rated for R6.5. If this thing performs anywhere near the premium pads, it could be a huge win for beginners. Third, I've got a new stove and pot combo from firemaple that I wanted to test out. This thing is ridiculously light for its price, and honestly, might be one of the best ultralight starter cook systems that I've seen so far. I'm also testing out this ultralight Alpha 90 fleece. I'm using this today as my active layer because it's still winter here in Colorado, and so even though we're having a decent day, you still want to have a little bit of a layer on, but I don't want to be so layered up that I'm sweating and end up getting wet before getting to camp. And finally, I brought something that I've never used before out on a backpacking trip: a tiny ultralight grill accessory, which means we're having steak tonight, baby. I'm already a couple miles into the hike, and I'm already noticing a few things about the pack. The first thing is how it distributes weight. It doesn't feel like a typical ultralight pack, where the weight is mostly on your shoulders. It actually feels balanced between your hips and your shoulders, which is what you would expect of a framed backpack. The second thing I've noticed is its simplicity. There's basically one main compartment, and just a couple minor pockets. A couple pockets on the side and then one mesh pocket on the end. No crazy zips to open it up on the sides or any of those other things that you see a lot of times on some of the other backpacks, which honestly I like so far, because I think some packs just try to do too much. So now I'm gonna sit here and finish off my snack, and then we're gonna get back on the trail and try to get to camp. All right, well, we made it to camp. This is where we're gonna find out if all of this gear is actually worth it or not. Let's go set up camp. All right, so let's talk about the tent. I tried to do a time lapse so that you guys could see me putting this thing up. But this thing, I will say, this is like the third or fourth time now that I've set this tent up. And I would definitely say, if you're new to backpacking, you may want to think about if you get this tent or not. Just like any other trekking pole tent, this thing takes a little bit of experience to be able to get up. So even though, it's not as expensive as some of the higher end tents, and it's still a pretty good lightweight tent to get into, if you're going to get this, I definitely recommend that you need to practice some, because depending on where you're at and how the ground is, you have got to really know how to put up a trekking pole tent. It's really easy at times. I'm up here in the Alpine Mountains right now, and so the ground is not really hard. And so it was really easy for me to get the stakes in. And even though I tried to go in at a good angle and use a good rock to get it in there, I'd be pulling on the other end to get it good and taut, and one stake would come out from the other side. So if you know what you're doing and you don't mind playing with it, and you've got some good patience, then it's a really, good tent so far. There's a lot about it I do like. I just wanted to put it out there up front, that you really need to think about some of those kind of things. And especially today, because it's pretty windy in the mountains. And so instead of going all the way up on the ridge where I wanted to go, I decided to kind of stay down here in the trees a little bit to get out of the wind a little bit. And so there's still a good bit of wind blowing here. And so I really wanted to get this thing as tight as I could. But let's talk a little bit about some pros that I like about it. This thing's really spacious. I'm 6'3", and this is the 2-person. This is the 2 Pro, and I always get a 2-person tent because Moose always comes with me, and I want to make sure that we've got enough room for me, him, and my gear. And so this thing, I'm sitting straight up, and there's still a good 6 inches or better above my head here in the center. And then you can also, I really like on this about how on the ends where you can pull the ends out, and it gives you a little bit more room too on the sides. And you'll see that one of the tricks that I've learned over time too is that if you take a stick and stick it under there, it'll even pull it out a little further too. And so you can see we've got a good bit of headspace over here too as well. So I'm really happy with how the spacing of everything is. I like the double doors. I like how you can get in and out of both sides. So if there are 2 people here, you can be able to, get out on your own end. There is a little bit of space on the ends too, to be able to, store your stuff. Now, another negative, about it is there's really no real good places, or good pockets. A lot of backpacking tents have pockets, or things that you can set stuff in right up here, so that you can, stash some of your lightweight gear or some of your bags, or, even your headlamp at night you could put up. There's really nothing like that in this tent. And then also, if you know anything about the Lanshan Pro tent is that it's also single wall. So this thing works really well as long as you're in dry climates. You got to really be careful if you're going to be in a wet environment. Not too long ago, I put it up as I was coming back from Death Valley, and we stopped at this site, and it was right next to a creek. And then it was cold at night too as well, and the cold has a tendency to hold in moisture a lot more on tents. And so when I woke up, there was all kinds of moisture on the walls on this thing. So if you know how to manage some of that, it's not a big thing, because you're going to get moisture on any tent no matter what. But you typically will just have a better chance of it getting on things like your sleeping bag. And if you move around and push up against the tent, you're going to get things on it with a single wall than you would, say, with a double wall. But overall, I kind of like how this thing is. It seems, the wind's been blowing pretty good. It stayed, once I got it good and somewhat taut, as much as I could with the ground the way it is here. It seems to be holding so far. So let's hope it does that throughout the night. All right, so let's talk now for a minute about the air pad. And so this here is one of Naturehike's. They have here on it NTR, air, NTR air. And it's a 6.5 air pad. And so I always have a hard time with Naturehike's pads of being able to really tell what model is what. They don't really make that really clear, and it's kind of hard to figure that out when you're buying something. And so this one in particular, I thought the price was somewhat decent. It's a lot less than, say, some of the big name pads that get into that above 4 or 5 or even 6 R values. They even have, Naturehike's got an R8 one too that I saw. I just didn't think that I needed something that extreme. But this thing, I would say it's about 3.5 inches thick. And it looks at first glance like it's going to be a nice and comfortable pad. There's definitely, some thickness to it, like some of my bigger pads. And we'll really be able to test it tonight. If this thing, tonight we're talking about getting down into close to freezing, and I'm not going to have anything under it, like I would in the winter. A lot of times I bring an extra foam pad to be able to put under to help with the R value and trying to keep the cold of the ground the way it is. But tonight I decided not to do that so I could really test this thing out. So it's going to get a real good test to see how warm is it going to keep me, and is it going to keep me from losing any of my own warmth to the ground as it cools off tonight. So we'll check back in with you tomorrow to let you know how it goes. All right. Now let's talk for a minute about this fleece here that I'm wearing today. And so this is a Alpha 90 fleece that I got from Bergen online. And it is super, super thin and weighs next to nothing. It's like 5 ounces. And so the lightest weight fleece I've had up until now was about 10 ounces. And that was a Patagonia fleece that I had. And so this thing's like half that weight. And so for me, I really was curious to see, would this be able to be something that I could easily toss in my bag and not be mad that I'm carrying an extra layer, even if I don't end up using it or not. But today, even though we've got a beautiful day here in Colorado today, and hopefully it stays halfway decent tonight, but it's still going to get cold. It's still winter and the end of February. Normally this time of year I would be hot tent camping, with my wood burning stove or something out, but it's gorgeous. So I decided that this was going to be a good weekend to get out and test some gear that maybe I didn't want to test, on below 0 temperatures, but I'm happy to test, in freezing temperatures. And so this thing, what I've noticed so far about this, I've been wearing it for a few days around the house and other places. And so if I take it, I just put a t-shirt under it, as long as it's not super chilly outside and there's just no real wind, then it does okay at kind of adding a little extra layer of warmth. Then if you take and you put it over something that's long sleeve, like today I've got a base layer of a wool long sleeve undershirt, and then I put this right on top of it, man, that really helps. So between the two of those, it really kind of keeps any of that breeze from cutting through the fleece. And so I really liked how it paired, especially for an active layer. This worked really, really well paired together for me to be able to backpack out. So I wasn't getting really sweaty in it because it kept me just cool enough that I didn't overheat too bad as we were hiking out. Now I can tell, we'll see, I'll wear this thing, as long as I can tonight before I put on my puffy. But I fully expect that this paired with my puffy will keep me will keep me warm into super low temperatures. We'll have to test that out as we go through in the future too. But it also, has a hood. And so I like, even though too, it's a thin hood, but I like how it adds a little bit of warmth. There's no real drawstrings or anything to this one, so that's a little odd. To me, I'd like to be able to pull it, tight a little bit, but I think they were just trying to save in weight by not adding anything extra to it. but it pairs well with some other things. You know, if I wanted to, and I was trying to get it to stay a little closer to my head, I could put my hat on top of it. I could take and put a beanie on top of it, and it just adds an extra layer of warmth to everything that you've got. So far, I'm really liking this thing. I think this is going to definitely be one of my go-tos that I have. Now, unlike a lot of some of the other gear that I'm testing today, this is not, it doesn't really fall into the cheap category. This thing, they want a little bit of a pretty penny for these things to be so ultralight. But you know what? So far, I really like it, and I'm glad I got it. Because even on, you know, if I'm doing shoulder season or even in the mountains during the summer where it still could get cool at night, knowing that I've got an extra layer that I could potentially throw on. Because the nice thing too is if I knew if I was in the summer and it was just going to get a little cold at night to where maybe this by itself wouldn't be enough, you know, I could probably get away with, instead of bringing my puffy, I could take my raincoat and be able to put that on over this, and it would help knock out that wind, and then this would add that warmth under there. So that could easily be the only thing that I would have to take out during a summer trip. All right, so after hiking with this pack all day, here's some of the things that I'm noticing. This thing really carries weight really well. They say it can hold up to about 40 pounds, and I believe it. I didn't have quite that on. I think at any given time today, I had about 26 pounds when I hit the trailhead. And then because we're dry camping tonight, we packed on a little bit of extra water. And so maybe I got up a few pounds, even more than that. And so I was maybe brushing that 30-pound mark at one point in time. But this thing seemed to hold it all really well. And the frame really seemed to be supportive without having to be really bulky. You know, in most of my time, I've either had really big, bulky, and heavy framed packs, or more of the ultralight, frameless packs, you know, or some of the ones that are trying to work at some of that. And so this one seemed to do really well to live in both of those worlds. I really liked how, you know, the hip belt seems to be a little bit longer out than what I've seen sometimes on some of the ultralight bags whenever they put when they do put a hip belt on it. And so for me, that helped give a little bit more of cushion, and I think it helps hold the weight a little better in partnering with the frame. And so I liked kind of how that worked. I've seen them say and talk about too that you could even fast pack in this. I don't know, you know, as somebody who does do fast packing, I jogged for a little bit in it today just to see kind of how it felt, and it felt pretty good the way it wore. I think maybe I had a little bit more weight than I would normally have in a pack, and so I would definitely, you know, normally if I'm going fast packing, I try to go as lightweight as possible. And so I think I'd have to try this one out again with the intentions of fast packing before I could really say a whole lot about it for that. But one of the other things that I really like about this thing so far, too, is that I noticed as I was really inspecting the pack that not only can the hip belt come out if you want, you know, so a lot of packs nowadays, you see that where they'll make it to where you can pull the pack out and pull the hip belt out. And some of that, you know, is done with the intentions that, you know, because somebody like me, I don't wear, like I wear a medium in the torso length, but then I'll need to have a large, you know, for my waist. And so a lot of times the removable hip belt is to just be able to help you be able to swap that out. But I think here too, one of the things that I really got thinking about this, if you're that person who, you know, maybe you're just kind of in that lightweight category, you're not quite in the ultralight category. So your loadouts are in that 30 pounds or so when you're going out. Then you're going to want something, to me, that's got, you know, some support to it. And so you want something with a hip belt, you want something with a frame like this has. But if your goal is to keep getting lighter and lighter and lighter, and your goal is to get into that ultralight or super ultralight, you could still use this pack, because you could take the belt out and you can even remove the frame. The frame can come out from the inside, and you're going to then save about 8 ounces or so. And so this thing goes from being 30 ounces to then down to like 22 if you wanted it to be. Now, me personally, I like the comfort of this, and that's why I'm really thinking that this could be one of the best ultralight packs for comfort. You know, is it the lightest one out of the market? You know, as far as no, because most of the lightweights you're going to get into the frameless. And so, but
for me, something that's got a frame, and a quality frame, to have a carbon fiber frame and then a good belt system goes a long way. So I really do like this thing for what it's going with so far. The other thing I noticed whenever I was coming out is that, one issue that I always have when I've tested out some different bags, for the ultralight world is, in these side pockets. And so normally a lot of times they're either so small that everything wants to fall out of them whenever you chance you get, if you don't strap it down, or, you can't reach them whenever you're going. And so one of the things that you hear the most about folks talking about people, any of the brands that are trying to get into this realm where they're trying to be ultralight, but at the same time have some comfort stuff, you always have this challenge of you can't reach your water bottle. And so for that was one of the first things that I tested when I was out today is, can I get my water bottle? Now, I will admit, I do have somewhat of longer arms, but I've had quite a few packs that I can't really reach my water bottles on. And it drives me nuts if I have to take the bag off, unbuckle it, or if I'm with a friend, I have to get them to hand me my water bottle. And so I love the fact that I could actually reach my water bottle with these pockets. So now let's talk about some of the negatives, I think. So there really is not a lot for me, but there are a couple things. And some of this, I think, is just getting used to it. You heard me mention earlier, I like the simplicity of this. When you look back on some of the older packs of Outdoor Vitals, they had a lot of other things in them. They had zippers on them to be able to open up. You had a whole lot more pockets. You had a lot more things. You had storage areas, which was all fine and dandy. But, I find myself, I've been backpacking for 30 years. And in the old days, this is kind of what you got. You had one big storage area that you pushed everything down into. And so it's kind of what I'm sort of used to, I think. But for me, the negative that I noticed, because I've been backpacking recently in the last 10 years or 20 years or so with a lot of different bags that have a ton of different pockets, you start to get used to, having pockets to put everything in. And so this one, it literally only has the side pockets here, which I use a lot of times for my water, tripod, anything like that. They've got a place you can put your trekking poles on the outside. They got a really big mesh pocket, which I love having these, because this is really good to have any quick access stuff that you want to get to. But also if you need to, dry any wet stuff out or keep wet stuff separate from the rest of your pack, you can put them in there. They've got your standard hip belt pockets on them, which I think those work really well. They've got some new zippers, it seems like, on them. They're really easy to open one-handed, which, I thought was pretty cool. And I could get to those pretty well as I was hiking along. But the negative portion of this, is there's like no pockets on the inside. A lot of backpacks normally have some kind of pockets in here. So they did have a water bladder insert thing there that you could have, but I don't hike with a water bladder, so I took that out in order to save a little bit of weight. But I'm used to there being some zippered pouches in here. And so I think they removed some of those to be able to help with some of the weight too, and just keep it simple. And so even though I'm saying that this is a negative, I really think that it's going to eventually be a positive for me. For me, the only negative was I'm really just used to throwing in a lot of my little things like, my keys or my toothbrush or my toothpaste and stuff into some zipper pocket like that. And so because I didn't have it, it made me stop and think, okay, do I need to, should I have put everything, in a ditty bag or something? Or for this particular case, what I did is I gave one of my hip back pockets to those really small things that I normally would put in there. And then I put my snacks in the other one. So it worked out fine. So even though I think some people might think that's a negative, that there's not a lot of, pockets on the sides here and stuff. So if you're really used to having and wanting a lot of pockets to organize, then you may not like this bag. But I tell you what, for me, I really like the simplicity. I've had so many bags that have those zippers that everybody wants to be like, oh, you can open it up like your luggage and get to anywhere in there you want. none of that ever has mattered for me in the years of me. I just have the same routine. I hike, I keep everything that I need to get access to on some of these outside pockets or at the top of the bag. You learn to kind of plan that way. And then when I get to camp, I pull everything out of my bag and then I sort it and put it where I want it in the tent or any other thing. So for me, I think I'm eventually going to like the simplicity of this and not having to have all of those pockets, because then you get into that habit of just never remembering where you put anything. So to me, that's a negative and a positive. And then the only other negative, and I think it still falls into that same category, is, a lot of packs that, you see nowadays, especially too, like I know the Kakwa 55, they'll have some pockets and stuff on your shoulder straps here. There's none of that here. There's really not even a lot of places to clip a lot of stuff. You've got your load lifters here to where you can pull on them. And so I try not to clip anything to the load lifters because you want them to be able to be nothing pulling on those or anything. And then you've got basically this section here that, is really used to be able to kind of hold them together. So you can clip to the bottom of that if you want. So if you're somebody, who's going to, want to put a lot of things here and be able to have stuff to clip them into, then that might be a bother for you. I know, like, if I was trying to find a place to put my sunglasses, I might have a challenge with not being able to find something there. But is this the end of the world? No, there's so many accessories that you can get. If you want pockets, you can get those to strap onto your shoulder straps there, or some of that. But that's really the only negative things here that I've really noticed. Overall, this thing really feels promising. To have a backpack, under 2 pounds that can carry, 30 and 40 pounds comfortably, it's just, to me, unheard of. And so I'm really looking forward to utilizing this one. Like I said, I came out even on this one a lot heavier because I was testing some heavier gear than I normally wouldn't be my normal go-to gear. And it was a good way of testing the bag. But for me, I think this is a great bag for anybody who's looking for something lightweight and that's still going to be able to carry some weight for you. But the part I'm looking forward to the most is dinner, because tonight I'm testing out this ultralight grill accessory I found. And yes, I carried a steak out here. All right, guys. Well, that was super yummy and very fun to do. I've never taken a steak backpacking with me. Definitely learned some lessons, from it because I'm used to just bringing out a dehydrated meal or something easy to kind of eat. I didn't think to bring a fork, and my long-handled titanium spoon didn't do so well for that. And I didn't think to bring a plate because normally I just use my mug. And so we got to eat the steak with our hand, which Moose didn't mind, and I didn't mind. It still made for a really yummy steak. But as you can see, I've layered up. Temps are starting to drop pretty quick like here. So I think Moose and I are, as the sun's going down behind the mountains over there, we're going to crawl into the tent here in a little bit, get warm. Maybe watch a movie we downloaded and check out all this gear that we've got to see if hopefully it's going to keep us warm throughout the night. So we'll check in with you guys in the morning. Well, good morning. We made it through the night. There were some challenges, but we made it. So let's start off, talk a little bit about the air pad. I know, right? So to start off with, it was definitely comfy. I would definitely say that I would rank that with the similar comfortable, with being as close as comfortable as my Nemo and some of the other big 4-inch pads that I have. So it managed to keep its air pretty decently. And I was surprised at how warm it was. It did actually keep me warm all night. Now, we had a little bit of a challenges because I made some mistakes on this trip. And one of those mistakes was I didn't bring my foam pad. Normally when I'm winter camping, even if I carry an air pad that's got a good R rating, I normally still carry the foam pad. And it's not necessarily for me. Sometimes I'll use it to put under my air pad, and then other times I use it to be able to give Moose something. Well, I told myself on this trip I wasn't going to bring that because I really wanted to test out the air pad directly on the ground, and I didn't want to have anything else under it. And so I chose to not bring it, but I didn't think that I should have brought it for Moose. So thankfully, I brought him an extra sleeping bag, and so I brought him one of my other quilts. And he had that to be able to lay with and stay warm, but he still had an issue with he's trying to lay on a quilt directly on the ground. And so as we talk a lot about how when you lay on a sleeping bag, how you lose a lot of that warmth and that insulation barrier, the same kind of thing happened to him last night. And so he'd get a little cold here and there. And so I ended up having to unclip my quilt from the air pad and let him kind of get up there as much as we could with both of us on the air pad so that he would have some insulation from the ground, and then we were both able to share the warmth to be able to stay warm last night. But before that, just with my quilt clipped in and using the air pad as just the base, it actually stayed really warm. And then right about an hour before daylight. So I always, and I think you guys have probably heard me if you watch some of my other videos, talk about how, you want to put your electronics in and keep them warm. And so a lot of times I will put my phone and my battery bank or, my batteries from my cameras and stuff in the sleeping bag with me whenever I sleep. And so I have done this for 10 years or better. Well, it just happened to be that last night I rolled over at one point because I was trying to share with him, and we're kind of tight quarters there. And I think I laid on one of those batteries and it punctured the air pad, which I was surprised at how easily that thing punctured. And not only did it just pop a hole in it, it literally ripped like a 6-7 inch gash in this air pad. So as much as I really was impressed at how warm this thing did keep me at the temperatures that we were dealing with, because it got below freezing last night. I think it got down to 30 degrees, and it did really well at keeping me warm. It did really well at being comfortable. It comes in at an amazing price for an air pad being able to do that. But it definitely, I think that price is because of maybe the quality of the material. And so I've never seen an air pad pop to that extreme. And so for me, I think, is it worth potentially getting if you're just starting out and you're trying to get something, of somewhat decent quality? Sure, but you need to make sure that you're doing everything you can to protect it. And be careful, what you put in there. Like I said, I'll own the fact that, that's on me for this thing getting popped because of me putting stuff in the quilt there with me. But, maybe next time I should, put that in some kind of a softer bag so that I don't run that risk for that. But I don't know. I've done this for 10 years and I've never popped an air pad that way. So this may be just a one-off. Or it could be, a flaw in potentially the pad. Now let's move to just a little bit on the stove. I know we didn't talk a lot on the stove on this one. I really do like this is the petrol line of the firemaple. It's their new ultralight remote stove. So is it as lightweight as my Toaks pot and my canister stove that I normally carry out with me? No. But what I really like about this and why I like it a little bit better for beginners is that with a remote stove, you're not having the stove on top of the canister, which can make it, a little bit more challenging to deal with in balancing it and getting it flat and then having to put a pot on it and those kind of things. This sits a little bit lower to the ground. It sits directly on the ground. You can get it it's a little bit easier to get it, solid kind of into the ground base there. And then the other cool thing about it is the pot that comes with it, which is also in the petrol line. I got the 600 milliliter pot that came with it. It just has so many other cool features to me that are really a lot more beginner friendly. One, it locks into the stove. So now the likelihood that it's going to slide off or tilt off of the stove is a lot smaller of a chance. It also has a better handle on it with some better grips on it. There's just a lot of other things, that it's got to it that I think help make this a better beginner stove. Now, as to the accessories that I brought last night to cook my steak, that thing is definitely cool. One of the other mistakes I think that I made, coming into this is that when I kind of bought that, I realized that they made the slats on the bottom of it to where it would sit pretty much perfectly on a canister stove. And so I made the assumption that it would do the same thing on this one without trying it at home, which was my fault. And so it didn't really set flush on it like it would a canister stove. It's really been made to where with a canister stove, it should sit in there pretty well, which would keep it pretty balanced on there. So I made it work. I mean, I was able to, kind of just like you would a pot, I was able to get it on top of the stove there and manage to keep it there. But it was definitely challenging a little bit. Like when I went to flip the steak and stuff, I had to be careful not to knock the pot off of the stove. I had to be careful, when it would, start to get wobbly, not to want to react and, grab it with your hand or something like that. So that could be dangerous, I think. But it managed to cook my stove, and it is pretty lightweight, for cast iron to be able to come out. And so we definitely enjoyed that. But then while I'm being fully transparent on all my mistakes for the weekend, I also managed to, because I don't normally go with a plate or a fork or any of those kind of things when I backpack, when I was quickly just tossing everything in the bag for this, I didn't think about, hey, I'm taking a steak out backpacking. I should probably have a fork and a plate. I actually did bring a pocket knife, which I don't always necessarily bring when I go out backpacking. So, but, we ended up just, doing it and eating it by hand, which, Moose didn't seem to mind at all. And the steak was still yummy and it still filled my belly. And I'm really glad I brought it out. But that was another fun moment. And then one other little small mistake that I made on this trip too was when I grabbed a canister. I've been testing out the firemaple the last few trips that I've gone out, and so I didn't think to check the weight on my stove. And so because I had to use a lot more fuel to cook the steak than I would say probably to boil water if I was doing a dehydrated meal, I ended up not having enough this morning to make my coffee. So this is going to be a fun morning. So not only did I have to sleep on the ground for the last hour of the morning and be a little chilly because I didn't have my insulation below me anymore, but now I've got to start the morning without my coffee. So I think it's time for me to slap my chair back on my pack, get everything going, packed back up, and get back on the trail so that we can get warmed up and go find us some coffee at the end of the trail.
All right, so I'm almost back to the truck. And I thought I would take a minute to give you my last thoughts on the Outdoor Vitals Carbon Eco 50. So Do I still think that this pack could be the most comfortable ultralight pack going into 2026? And do I think that it might be one of the first packs to knock the Kakwa 55 off its pedestal? I don't know if I'm completely ready to say that yet, because I mean, I've only gotten it out for this trip and a couple hike trips to test it out. But I will say this, it's doing an amazing job at being able to be at an ultra lightweight, having a real frame support, and actually being comfortable. And that combination is rare. Most packs out on the market that I've seen do their best to give you 2 of the 3, but very few of them can give you all of them. And this one is trying really hard to give you all 3. So if you want to see more real gear tests like this, or real backpacking trips with honest feedback, faults and mistakes and all, then hit that subscribe button. And if you've had your eyes on this pack, or even have ordered it recently and have gotten it out, tell me what you think about it. And if you're looking at something else, at a different pack, then I would love to know what you're looking at as well, especially if it can meet in those 3 categories. If it can be something that's lightweight, have some kind of support system like a belt and a frame, and still be comfortable, then I'm curious to know what you guys are looking at. And don't just say the Kakwa 55. Or if you do, tell me why you think it's better. Because I already know that a lot of you guys love that pack.
Would you sit? Sit. Sit. Hey, sit. I know. I know you're the star of the show. I know. I know. Now can you sit so that we can do this? Thank you. Good boy. Good boy.